The Atlantic Council's Commission on Defense Innovation Adoption has set its sights on one of the most vital elements of national security and defense, to ensure that the United States maintains and widens our historic technology advantage over our adversaries now and for decades to come. To remain the world's preeminent military power, the United States must rapidly absorb the most compelling, mission-critical technology from our vast industrial base, especially in the private sector, where American commercial technology continues to revolutionize the world, fueling a new race for artificial intelligence, robotics, and autonomous technologies, all critical to our national security. Yet some of the most innovative commercial technologies and companies that lead development in these and other important areas are standing on the sidelines, unable or unwilling to work on major defense acquisition programs. To understand why and to seek solutions on how the Pentagon can better adopt these technologies, the Atlantic Council brought together an impressive group of senior government leaders, high technology industry executives, and national security-focused investors who are passionate about tackling this critical challenge. We formed a commission led by former Secretary of Defense Dr. Mark Esper and former Secretary of the Air Force Deborah Lee James. Over the course of 18 months, we engaged more than 70 stakeholders from the White House, Congress, the Pentagon, and the private sector. The goal is to help the Pentagon make bigger bets on commercial and dual-use technologies critical for the future of U.S. security.
In the decades following World War II, the United States could count on its vast industrial base to provide the weapons, equipment, and technologies needed to ensure the nation's security. But today, many of those companies are long gone or have since divested their defense businesses, leaving a critical void for the Pentagon to fill. In earlier years, defense accounted for a much larger share of the nation's economic output and an even larger portion of research and development. These days, however, many cutting-edge tech companies, especially those who invest the most in R&D, are not in the defense space. Throughout its history, the United States has relied on innovation to develop the weapons, equipment, and material so critical to our national security. The Manhattan Project required the marshaling of all of America's scientific prowess, ingenuity, and industrial capacity to develop the weapons that would end the war in the Pacific and catapult the U.S. to superpower status with the onset of the Cold War. When faced with the overwhelming numerical superiority of the USSR during the Cold War, American innovation once again delivered the superior ground vehicles, aircraft, and precision-guided munitions that allowed U.S. and NATO forces to level the playing field and deter Soviet aggression. In the years that followed, as air defense systems became more lethal and threatened the United States' ability to project air power, yet another effort to develop and harness new technologies proved decisive. The development of stealth and other low observable technologies in the 1970s and 80s cemented America's control of the skies for decades and is still one of the greatest qualitative edges the United States military has over its adversaries. As history has taught us, a critical part of fostering a culture of innovation is demonstrating the willingness and ability to take risks. We need more of that at the Pentagon these days. To help enable this, Congress and the Department of Defense should partner to experiment with increased budget flexibility and streamlined program management to deliver better results faster. Empowering acquisition officials to make smart trade-offs and incorporate promising new technology into existing programs will not only generate better outcomes for the warfighter, but will also send the signal that the Pentagon wants its workforce to innovate rather than simply follow a checklist. One way to achieve this is with a capability portfolio model. Rather than managing stovepipe programs separately, a portfolio would allow acquisition officials to focus on delivering the best solution for the warfighter, leveraging common platforms and services to save costs, inserting emerging technology as it matures, and mitigating supply chain risk. Piloting such a model with a select number of program offices could provide an initial proof of concept which, if successful, could be scaled across the department and services. The goal is to empower the Defense Department to build a more robust industrial base with secure and nimble supply chains that can deliver capabilities in mass and with speed.
Given the rapid development of military technology in the past, many may ask, why does the pace of innovation and production seem so much slower today? How did we get here? And what can we do to get back on track? Well, one reason is the contraction of the defense industry after the fall of the Soviet Union. You see, with the end of the Cold War, military spending declined, and the U.S. government signaled that the excess capacity was simply unnecessary going forward. This led the defense industry to consolidate, with fewer companies competing for contracts, fewer production facilities, and a reduced industrial workforce nationwide. Another major factor is the growth of private sector technological innovation. You see, for most of the 20th century, the federal government was the primary source of funding for research and development of new technology. Organizations like NASA and DARPA were responsible for many of the technological breakthroughs of the time. Everything from putting a man on the moon to the development of the personal computer. Today, however, most R&D money does not come from the government. It comes from non-government sources like private industry and venture capital firms. And the DoD is even struggling to harness the results of this funding, since it has less involvement today in cutting-edge research than it did in the past. Moreover, modern weapon systems are increasingly complex, and they rely heavily these days on software and digital services to ensure their effectiveness. Now, all of this is bad news, as many innovative companies view business with the government as simply too risky or too bureaucratically challenging to be profitable. And to make matters even worse, as the technological landscape evolves, government policy simply has failed to keep up. So where does all this leave us? Well, regulation and compliance have become increasingly restrictive and create a burden on both DoD acquisition officials and on the companies trying to deliver new capabilities. Removing this administrative burden and updating acquisition processes for the modern day would allow the DoD to better harness the wealth of innovation that exists in the U.S. private sector. To speed innovation, the DoD and Congress are simply going to have to work together better to enable greater flexibility in program management, budgeting, and requirements development.
The Commission on Defense Innovation Adoption has really pondered how we get capability in warfighters' hands much more quickly. We have amazing technological innovation in this country. We have business systems at DoD that have not kept up with the pace of technology innovation. We need, in the year of execution in our programs, to allow our program executive officers, those with the hands-on knowledge, to be able to take new technology, apply it to current fielded systems and systems under development right now, to give us even more overmatch against our strategic competitors. Taking above threshold reprogramming and allowing Congress 30 days to give thumbs up or thumbs down on reprogramming, allowing the department to move very quickly. Historically, we have done this. We need to go back to those best practices. We need to be very clear that our program executive officers are often overly constrained with the narrow definition of their budget line items. There's an opportunity to open the aperture and give some of these PEOs the ability to have incremental budget, incremental appropriations to allow up to $250 million per year to take what the PEOs see as the opportunity to insert new technology into existing programs of record. We have the opportunity to upgrade our PPBE system to make sure that we can take new innovations and quickly scale that to make sure that our warfighters have the latest and greatest. We need Congress to work closely, as they've demonstrated so many times they can do, with DoD to move reprogramming efforts forward quickly. Inserting new capability in the year of execution is a critical enabler for program executive officers to field new technology applications.
The Commission on Defense Innovation Adoption provides tremendous thought leadership on the imperative for the Department of Defense to leverage one of America's few sources of global comparative advantage: the scale, the scope, and the breadth of our more than $50 trillion capital markets. These highly flexible and liquid capital markets can be used to invest in or lend behind the development of dual-use technology to accelerate military innovation, as well as to scale procurement and to address infrastructure shortfalls that are impacting readiness. As a complement to investing and lending agreements, the department could develop standardized forms of loan guarantees for commercial ventures and send clear demand signals such as advanced market commitments to incentivize the investment needed to fund technology companies between pilot and production contracts. That is the real value of death. It can also establish a trusted clearinghouse to share information with qualified investors, creditors, and commercial partners. In addition, we believe that the department should organize a central touch point for the funding, adoption, and scaling of commercial technology.
As the nature of war changes and the need to deter conflicts around the world becomes more pressing, it is essential that US and allied militaries have access to the full potential of their country's innovation capacity. Since World War II, Americans could trust that US warfighters were equipped with cutting-edge capabilities that provided them advantages over their adversaries. Today, the US faces technologically sophisticated, nuclear-armed competitors, and the qualitative advantage it once enjoyed is no longer easily guaranteed. It is up to this generation of congressional leaders, policymakers, military planners, and private sector innovators to ensure that the historic military and technological advantage US warfighters have relied in the past can be called on once again, today and in the future.